Welcome, and thank you so much for joining the International Relations Council for today's International Career Series with Teaching English Abroad, South Asia, and the Middle East. The International Career Series is designed to help you explore different international career paths, whether you're graduating and entering the job market, looking for a change, or just curious. You'll soon hear from an individual who can share their work in an international field, offering insight into their own educational background, career paths, intricacies of the field, and recommendations for your own search. My name is Chrissy Crowell, and I'm an events intern this summer. For those unfamiliar, the IRC is a nonpartisan, apolitical organization that provides a platform for greater understanding of international topics and how they intersect with the Kansas City community. We will be recording today's event and broadcasting it live on Facebook. So if you'd like to review this conversation at a later date or share it with someone you think might enjoy it, feel free to visit our YouTube or Facebook page. This recording will join many others as a free resource for the people of Kansas City to use and revisit time and time again. Today, we are very pleased to be joined by Katy McAlary, an educator and English instructor who will discuss her experiences with teaching English abroad. Katy has been an educator for the past 9 years. She has served as an assistant teaching professor at Washington State University, a teacher trainer and workshop facilitator for the U.S. Department of State's English Language Fellow Program in Bangladesh and India, as well as an English instructor at Lewis Clark State College, University of Idaho, and the Gimhae network of English teachers in South Korea. After Katy graduated with her bachelor's in education in English, she acquired master's degrees in the fields of English, literature, world religions, and anthropology. She now works as an associate English and anthropology instructor for New York University academic enrichment program in the UAE. It is safe to say that Katy has engaged in the international experience, and we thank you, Katy, so much for giving us some of your time today. For this event, please feel free to pose your questions in the chat feature at the bottom of your screen throughout the program, and we will do our best to get to them as possible in the Q&A period of this program. As a quick housekeeping note, if you have heard about this event through meetup.com, could you please let us know in the chat box by simply writing, I heard about this on Meetup. If you would like to connect with us at the IRC, please feel free to log on to our website, irckc.org, which will also be available in the chat box. We encourage you to check it out if you're interested in joining as a member, receiving our newsletter, or exploring other upcoming events. Thank you, and please welcome Katy.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just gonna share my screen here, so then we can start. Okay, everyone can see it? Okay, great. Okay, so I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about my experiences working internationally. I have kind of a broad spectrum of how I got there. And so if at any point anyone has any questions about, any aspect of like the countries I've worked in or how I got there, I would love to just like expand on those. So definitely questions are welcome. Okay, so just a little bit about my educational background. I started off at LCSC, which is a small Idaho college. I got my bachelor's in secondary education, English and Spanish. I initially thought I was going to be teaching high school students and junior high students, but I ended up thinking, oh, well, I would rather teach university students. So then I went on, I got my master's in English literature from University of Montana. From there, then I made some career choices, which I'll get into. But then I really wanted to keep my education going. So later I decided to get a graduate certificate in world religions from Harvard University. And then I just couldn't, again, get enough education. So I went back to school and got another master's in social sciences, specifically in anthropology, with emphasis in women and gender studies and political science. Okay, so I just figured I'd walk you through my entire regional and international professional work experience and just really how I got to those points and what education and experience I needed to get those. Okay, so first off, right after I got my master's in English literature, I went to Korea. So I needed a bachelor's. So technically I was overqualified when I got there. The location that I got stuck in, or not stuck in, I really liked it, but it was a very small town, was Gimhae. So if you look at this map, it is right next to Busan, which is a major city. I got into kind of a smaller city, which I quite liked, especially coming from a very rural, I'm from a town that's like 2,000 people. So that's where I grew up. And so I just kind of kept going with building up where those locations were and their population. So I was in Gimhae. I was technically accepted for two positions. One was EPIC and GNET. So English program for international teachers in Korea, something like that. I know that I did not get that correctly. I didn't actually go with EPIC, but I wanted to put it in here because EPIC is an excellent program to go with if you want to teach in South Korea. I went with GNET, which is the Gimhae Network of English Teachers. Both offered me the same basic package, which was about $2,000 a month, but your housing comes with it and your flights come with it, as well as healthcare. So it's kind of a really good deal, especially if you're just getting out of your bachelor's and you kind of want to travel abroad, you're thinking about teaching. South Korea is kind of the gateway of English teaching abroad. So most people that I worked with at Washington State University and University of Idaho that were teaching English as a second language all had gone to South Korea, on the majority, about 90% of them, because it's easy to get a job, they pay pretty well, and they take care of you. So this was kind of a day in the life of working in South Korea. This was my apartment, which it has, I would say, the worst walls in the world. They were an ugly brown, but it was a very cute like apartment. If you know, like in South Korea, they warm they don't have heating systems, it's in the floors. And so like it actually worked quite well. My feet were very happy. But this was probably like the lower end of the apartments. I saw my coworkers and they had really nice, like the walls were white and a little bit nicer, but it still was a great little apartment. It had a kitchen, it had a bed, it had a desk and a bathroom. Very accommodating, especially for a 22, 23-year-old. So, and this was the food situation. Probably my favorite part of going to any country is trying the food. So South Korea definitely has my heart on that. This is bulgogi. If you've tried it, it's, you know how amazing it is. So this is just, some of the perks of getting to go to another country is you get to travel. So this is around the Busan area. You make friends, which, the two people in the picture with me are my colleagues from work. A little about the school that I ended up working with GNET. They assigned me to a public school and a private school. The public school had me working with about 600 students during the week, which seems like a lot. It's very hard to remember all of their names, but essentially you have no prep. So like all of the work is basically coming out of a book. So you're going into it, you don't have to prep, you don't have to grade. You're essentially just going to a 4th grade class, you teach the lesson, 5th grade class, you teach the lesson, 6th grade class, you teach the lesson. And then you sit for a little bit, probably about an hour of desk warming at the end of the day, and then you go home. It's a very easy job for what it is, and you get a really excellent experience out of it. So these were some of my kiddos. In the private school, it was a little bit different because with the public school, I worked there from Tuesday to Friday every week. And I just took a bus. It took about half an hour to get there. My colleague thankfully worked or lived right next to me. So she went on the bus with me the first couple times to get me acclimated because everything's in Korean. So it was a little bit daunting to go to a country where you don't know the language, but that's also, it's a fun thing because if you go into any of the restaurants, you probably should learn some Hangul, which is their writing. Because then it's easier to order food. So everything is kind of set up where phonetically it's an easy language and it's easy to see it all the time in practice. But so this other school, the private school, was a little bit further away. I had to travel by metro, and then another colleague from the private school out in the country would pick me up and drive me the last half hour. So it was about an hour and a half to get there. I would again be, no prep, except for this last class, which you can see like the cute little kids with the Thanksgiving hats. There was no prep for these guys. They were 4 and 5, and I did not have a teacher in the classroom with me. So that meant that they did a lot of arts and crafts. I had a blast with these guys, even though I mean, my background was in teaching junior high and high school. And so, but these guys were the highlight of my week. So you never know what you're going to get. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to just get to meet a lot of people and to just have fun with it. But this is a fairly easy job for pretty decent pay and a lot of really good benefits. Okay, so moving on, after I did that, that was enough experience for me combined with my master's to move on to University of Idaho and Washington State University. I did about a year at U of I, and in total with Washington State University, I've worked there over 5 years, just because I keep bouncing back there in between my stints of going abroad. Thankfully, they just keep hiring me. So these are just a couple pictures. This is around where I grew up. So these are also my home. What you need to teach ESL at a university in the US, you need your master's. It's really good if you have a TESOL certificate. Specifically, I have bypassed having to need my TESOL master's, which is teaching English as a second language. I've bypassed it very luckily because I have had the experience teaching in South Korea. So technically, if you have experience combined with an English, just a basic English master's or an education master's, you can probably get a job. But they really would prefer that you have a master's in TESOL because then you get a lot more opportunities. So this is in Moscow, Idaho, and Pullman, Washington, very tiny, tiny little towns. The university is the only thing that really brings a lot of people in, but that's what makes it kind of a beautiful community because there is a lot of international students. So I worked at the U of I American Language and Culture program, and WSU's was the Intensive American Language Center. They were a little different because you're talking about different states. So U of I got adjunct wages. So I was teaching about 5 to 7 classes a semester, which is quite a bit. That takes quite a bit of prep. I was making about $2,200 a month, which is just a little bit over what I was making in South Korea. I didn't have any benefits, so no healthcare, no, no looking down the road, having retirement, nothing like that. So it wasn't maybe the best, but it was still a really great experience. And I think it's always great to keep in mind that the more experience you have, it's better for when you get down the line and you get a better career opportunity. So I worked at U of I for a year, and then WSU had some openings, and thankfully they gave me full time. So that meant that it came with benefits. I got healthcare, I got retirement, and they only had me teaching 4 classes, which was great, like much less prep. And I was making about 3,000, a little over 3,000 or a month, which is about 36,000 a year. Still not a ton, but it's still a really good job and very comfortable. It does have upward mobility opportunities. Because I was there for 5 years, I was up for a promotion. Unfortunately, I was laid off due to COVID because then our international student numbers dipped. But I was up for a promotion for salary increase and for my assistant teaching professor to change to an associate teaching professor. So just a day in the life. These are all of my students that, well, not all of them, but definitely some good times with both my U of I and WSU students over the years. So I've had students from Saudi, Oman, Bahrain, Vietnam, Cambodia, Peru, anywhere in the world. This was just a really great opportunity to meet people and to just learn about other cultures and communities, especially through a teaching lens. Okay, so then I put these both on here. I got a job after working at WSU a little bit with the U.S. Department of State with the English Language Fellow Program, both in Dhaka, Bangladesh, and Kolkata, India. So I put them both on there, but I will speak about them separately. Okay, so with the Department of State, you do need your master's in English. They would have preferred English with teaching English as a second language. So they wanted TESOL, but they bypassed it because I now had experience teaching in South Korea and some university experience. So again, I got to be in Dhaka, which is the capital in Bangladesh, and then in Kolkata, India, which is just right across the border into India, so very close to Bangladesh. This was an interesting process of determining which country I would go to. So when you apply, you are basically asking for any country. So they asked me to make a list of what are your top 5 countries that you want to teach in. So my first ones were South America, because I spoke some Spanish. I really wanted to go to India, and I think that's about my spectrum was, okay, South American countries and India. And they came, they offered me the job, and they said, okay, well, you will have a country determination based on what your skill set is and what the country needs. So a country will make a bid on you, and then you have 24 hours to say yay or nay. So my first bid was with Kyrgyzstan, and I did not know where Kyrgyzstan was on a map. So I did a lot of research in that 24 hours where I learned where it was in the world and what they were known for. Would I want to go there, etc. And specifically, I was going to get stationed in Bishkek, which is also the capital. And I was going to see what language was I going to learn. What was this going to be like for a year? So in the 24 hours, I was like, I don't know anything about it. Wasn't on my list, but I signed up for it. So sure, okay. And then they said, okay, we'll get back to you if they accept your acceptance, then we'll go through with it. And it turns out that they wanted a male to be in that position because there are some issues of potential bride snatching. I don't know if anyone is familiar with this, but if a single woman is walking down the street and the guy likes her and wants to marry her, then the family traditionally goes and snatches the bride and takes her to her wedding. And if she complains about it, then that's a good woman. And so I was like, that's probably not going to happen to me. I'm an American. And I talked to a woman that lived there, and she's like, it might happen to you. So it was just a better situation to have a man go into that position, and I was very thankful. So they said, okay, never mind, not Kyrgyzstan. We gave it to someone else. Here's Bangladesh. What do you think? And I was like, Bangladesh, right next to India. I'm on board. So I was very happy. I was chosen 1 out of 4 to go to Bangladesh, and I was, I was even happier then that I got an extended offer into India the next year. So I basically got what I wanted. Just some salary and benefits. It's a contract for 10 months. So it's $3,000 a month. So it's basically $30,000 a year. You get housing and a living stipend, and you also get a professional development stipend and flights. So it's a really good opportunity to have just a little bit of wiggle room. So you're getting paid, but you're also not having to worry about where you're living. You're not having to worry about like transportation, etc. So they really do take care of you. My only caveat to this is that make sure that you put some money aside for the taxes, because you will have to pay taxes because it's a US company. And so I did not think about this as I was getting money in. I was warned about it, but didn't think about it. And so I had a very hefty tax amount that I had to pay the second year because I did not put enough away for the taxes. So just keep that in mind. It is an excellent program, though, very prestigious if you do get accepted. So if you have any questions about that, it's a really fun program. So just in case anyone did not know where Dhaka, Bangladesh is, this is kind of where it is in the world, and then specifically in Dhaka, the capital. Okay, so this was kind of just a couple images from, and just kind of like what I have in my CV, just explaining what I did in Bangladesh. So Specifically, Bangladesh wanted me to start an English language resource center, which was I worked at a resource center and a writing center in my alma mater at LCSC. So I was like, this is a great fit for me. So I think that's primarily why I got the position I did, is because I had experience working at a writing center. So I recruited the tutors, I trained them, I opened them up for workshops. They got to choose how they could help student peers, around their university community. I also taught 2 classes at IUB, or Independent University Bangladesh. Some side projects that I did tri-weekly conversation groups with community members, people just wanting to learn English, which was a really fun way to meet people. I also, I taught some English classes at IUB, and then I also led multiple conference presentations and some work training programs. So pretty much if anybody needed anything education-wise, the answer was going to be yes. So I became a very good yes man in Bangladesh, where if somebody wanted me to present at their school, sure, I will come present at your school. I will help in any way I can. So that's kind of what you're getting paid for, is to be kind of a face of US education, which is a really cool thing. These are just some of my experiences. I obviously had a blast in Dhaka. I got to learn, I stayed with a family during Eid al-Adha, which is a really cool holiday to kind of spend, especially with a family that celebrates, traditionally. So they put henna on my hands. They taught me how to wrap a sari, and then they slaughtered a cow, which is, the tradition. And you see that there are 3 piles of meat. One goes to them, and one goes to their community that helped pay for the cow, and the other goes to the poor. So people would come by the house who are a little bit less fortunate, and they would be able to have meat. So I thought that was a really cool, wonderful, beautiful thing. So then the next year I was in Kolkata. So this is just a really beautiful picture of Kolkata. There are obviously a lot of visions of Kolkata, but I love this one because I did live right next to a bridge. So this one was also a really great one because I do have a background in women and gender studies as well. It's kind of not my main focus, but definitely my emphasis in a lot of my research. And so they knew that. And so when they offered me the job, they said, we have a women's rehabilitative program that we want you to lead. So it was an English, career readiness, digital literacy, and cathartic art course to kind of build social mobility for these women to get jobs if they wanted to. So that was my main program. I was very excited to lead that. I met some wonderful women, and it was a really great time. Another aspect was developing curriculum and providing teacher training opportunities. So I worked with a lot of teachers in Kolkata, and just basically going over effective classroom practices and how to keep a lot of students entertained, because I think on average Americans have about 25 cap for a normal classroom, and they would have 100. So how do you keep 100 fifth graders like all engaged? So we did a lot of just teaching strategies. Here were some other just some programs. Actually, if you see Sadia Orna, who is with the IRC, she's in this photo right behind me. So she helped me with this, which was a videography program for access students, which are students that are getting some extra English practice to get them ready for careers and universities. So I also just did some compiling and editing for UNICEF, which was a really cool program, essentially doing some bilingual translations and making sure that they were correct. So you never really know what you're going to get in these positions, but when somebody presents you with an opportunity, you just say yes. So, and these were some of my experiences. Obviously, you get to travel. I got to see the Taj Mahal, like just getting to see some really, really cool things and making some really wonderful friends. All right, so then that leads me to NYU Abu Dhabi. So I will be taking this, I was just offered this position. So technically I'm not working there yet, but I will be in about a couple weeks. So my background needed to get this position, I needed a master's. I had to have international experience, especially with international students in general in a university context. And I also needed publications. So I do have about 5 publications with magazines. I have a book published and I have some articles published. So those really pushed me over the edge because they wanted someone to have some knowledge on how to critically and rhetorically analyze things. So that was a big deal. The location is in Abu Dhabi. In case you did not know where it's at, that's right there in the Middle East, kind of in the middle of everything. So this is NYU Abu Dhabi. It's the academic enrichment program, which is really great because it kind of marries liberal arts and social sciences, which is basically my background with literature and social sciences with anthropology. The benefits, it kind of begins around 5K, but it can go upwards. I have another friend that makes about 80 to 100K in her position, and she's just got about the same qualifications that I do. You can get housing, transportation, healthcare and benefits, travel, you have vacations, and you can also ask for support to get into a PhD program, likely in Europe. Currently I'm looking into that because of course I want more school. So these are just kind of the things that I will be doing in my position. So I'll be doing some co-teaching and co-creating, specifically on identity politics and construction. It's really important to look at just beginning steps of getting into college and how to look at something critically, how to do a literature review, that kind of thing. So that's kind of going to be my focus, is the writing, but also the content, which is my favorite part. There's also an aspect of dislocation, trauma, identity, which I get to compile those readings. And it gets paired with not a vacation, but field trips to Greece, Italy, and Germany, so that there is a more hands-on component. So it's a dream job for an educator and for a traveler. So, all right. So obviously, these are things that I've achieved in my life, but I also have career goals. So ultimately, I am working towards a path to get to my ultimate career goal, which is to be a cultural ambassador with the U.S. Department of State. So first, you have to become a Foreign Service Officer, which is a very difficult process. Typically, you start out having to take the FSOT, which is the Foreign Service Officer test. I have now taken it 2 times, almost passed, but the general knowledge portion is random. So you basically are going to get asked anything from historical aspects of a conflict that happened maybe 200 years ago to what the 2 initial political parties were in the United States, etc. So you never know what you're going to get, but definitely you're going to be getting just some random information in that. But I think it's important too, even though I've not passed it 2 times, the average is 4 times. So I feel like I'm still within that spectrum. Once you do pass the Foreign Service Officer test, then you have culture and language training, which is really great. So you'll get assigned a country probably for 3 to 4 years. So say I get Bangladesh, then I would have some Bengali language training beforehand, and then I would go to the country and then try and do aspects of public diplomacy. So really talking to leaders and talking to the public and seeing what do they need? What can the United States help with in creating those formations of cultural bonds between the US and whatever country you're in. So that is essentially public diplomacy. I saw an example of this with my Foreign Service officer when I was in India. Greg Pardo worked specifically on Shakti Vahini, which is really helping women, women and children from being sex trafficked. So it's really about raising awareness and being able to identify tenets of sex trafficking that maybe the public's not aware of so that you can protect yourself, etc. So I think there's just some really wonderful experiences there that can help people. And that's what I really would like to be a part of. So that's the end goal. And also, just I've glossed over this, but you do have to have a bachelor's to do the foreign service, to be a foreign service officer. I would definitely recommend having some experience and a master's to go into it, because then you you have something to fall back on a little bit. That's I mean, it's not an easy job. So my inspiration for these have been my foreign service officers, or my relos, which is a regional English language officer, which was basically my boss as an English language fellow, and just ambassadors, which I mean is essentially where I want to get myself to. So yeah, basically the benefits of getting an international career, I'm just going to show you a couple. Getting to travel. So I have been to 35 countries in the world. So, and I feel like there's just so much more to see. So I'm just going to share a couple of mine. So this is Egypt, this is Bhutan, this is Spain, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Hong Kong, Peru, Jordan. So really, the world is your oyster. So I feel like really, if you have that passion to travel and you have a passion to teach, then like any of these avenues to try and get, especially a master's in teaching English as a second language, you have these opportunities open to you. So I'm very open to any questions. And also, if you have questions later, here's my email just in case. So.
Well, thank you, Katie. Those pictures are amazing. We do have a few questions in the chat box already, so that is wonderful. So Margaret asked kind of near the beginning of the presentation if you went to South Korea on part of the Fulbright teaching grant or if you did it independently.
Yeah, I did it independently, but I did meet people that went through the Fulbright, and that's also an excellent opportunity. I think if anyone gets an opportunity to apply for a Fulbright and go, they definitely should. I had a friend that I got my master's with in Montana, and she got a Fulbright to Vietnam. She said one of the best experiences of her life. So.
That is wonderful. Margaret has another question about how you first got into publishing your articles and publications.
So I was first approached by a German university right after I got my master's thesis done. So it's about 9/11 literature. And so I'm not really sure how they got, they might have a connection with the University of Montana, but they approached me, asked if they could publish it. So it was a really easy aspect of publishing. It's definitely not that easy normally. In my other ones, I have published through Bengali journals. And so the journalism department basically said, we have a publication. We'd really like you to be talking about your steps of using multiple intelligences in the classroom. So I published an article on that. And I also have another article published through them that is a review of some literature of South Asia. And then another one of my publications is with Whitworth University. So I wrote an article, I sent it off to them, and then they accepted it, and then they published it. So, which I think is the most typical way to do
it. Yes. Those all sound very wonderful. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to post them in the chat or unmute yourself. Oh, Margaret has another one. Good timing, Margaret. What do you think is the best thing students looking to get into foreign service and or working abroad can do to kind of prepare for entering the field?
I think, the more knowledge base you can get, the better. I think even at this stage of my life, like the more you learn, the more you are going to be a better candidate to move into those positions. Because as a foreign service officer, like the position I want to get into, I've just collected a lot of books, and then you just read a lot, or you watch a lot of documentaries. So, or you go sign up for classes. That was one of the primary reasons that I got my graduate certificate from Harvard. Was I did that when I was in India, and so I was still working full time, but it was still teaching me something that was going to be beneficial for me in the long run. So technically, it doesn't really help me in getting any sort of jobs, but it does prepare me in being a more knowledgeable professional and being able to take aspects of Islam or Judaism or Christianity or Hinduism and take it with me into, you know, whatever position I'm going to then go into, because having more knowledge is always a good thing.
That makes complete sense, and I love that answer.
I do have a question,
Oh,
Chrissy.
perfect.
Hi, Katie. That was so
Hi, Orna.
wonderful. That was like the best presentation I have ever seen. Thank you so much. Thank you for being so like openly saying all the things, all the information is very helpful. I do have a question. Like, if you would be able to share like some of your recommendations for books and documentaries.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like
That is difficult because there are so many. So I have a very large, I mean, my interest has, especially when I lived in Bangladesh and in India, my focus has been on maybe more of Islam. So I learned a lot about Arab Spring. I learned a lot about like the tensions between Palestine and Israel. I feel like I could give you a nice list, but like it's hard to know where to start. And it's been a compilation of like years and years of like, oh, this was a great documentary. So I could, you know, issue you one later if you want. But yeah, there's a plethora of resources, and it's just fun to go find them. So, and Netflix has a lot of really good ones also.
That sounds perfect. It looks like we have another question in the chat from Shari. She says that her work is in sustainability education and that they've worked in several countries and looking to get their TESOL certification as just another kind of tool in their toolbox. Do you know if any universities would see this as a plus? She's also a doctoral candidate. Just kind of some thoughts and opinions on that question.
Yeah. Well, so when I was heading into South Korea, I already had like the education and teaching background for education wise, but I knew that they might want TESOL. Like I didn't realize that South Korea required very like nothing of you other than just having a bachelor's. But I did get my TESOL certification through, I believe it was Idaho teaching. So just an online program. It was good. I don't know if it has helped going that route. I think it's much better to go through a very well certified. If you're going to go the online route, I wouldn't go through kind of the lower end ones, because it's honestly, people look at it and then they're just like, but it's not a master's endorsement or anything like that. So if you're already like in your doctorate, you know, if you're already enrolled in any sort of educational, it's so easy to just like add on those classes and then just I would say yes, I think it would definitely be worth it, because then you have so many opportunities open to you, because if you just have that TESOL, like even an endorsement, it definitely goes a long way.
That is wonderful advice. Thank you. Kind of building off of that question, I also have one. What do you think people would kind of be surprised or interested to learn about what makes you a good candidate? So what knowledge or skills do you think you've kind of developed from your many experiences?
I think, you know, when people are choosing you for positions, they really are looking for, can you do the job? Can you do the skill set? And what experience have you had? So I guess the most surprising thing is just I've been asked like, okay, well, like, what is your international experience? And so then they're always like, oh, well, you've been to all these countries. I think always make sure that like, if you have any opportunities to travel or to, you know, like pick up any sort of like international communities, even within your community, like go spend some time with them. Like, I think the more that you understand about other cultures, like that really is an asset to you in getting a job, because even my having had students from the Middle East helped me get my job with NYU Abu Dhabi, because I understand my students from Oman and Bahrain and UAE. And I think understanding culture and politics in the region as well is just very helpful, because when you're trying to get a job, they definitely want you to know more about the area that you're going or that you want to go.
That sounds perfect. And I'm sure we're all itching to begin traveling again.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit on kind of mentors or networks? I know you just mentioned that in your job search, but how you can kind of grow those in your area of
Yeah.
work?
So I got most of my networking through the English language fellowship program. So I know that that's not like fully accessible for everyone, but I think just make sure that whatever networking that you can do at the moment, like you will never know what you need later down the line. Like even, you know, when Orna and I were talking about like giving this presentation, she was talking about some ideas of like, oh, well, if you know anybody that does this, you know, and like specifically it was yoga, like international yoga. And it's like, oh, I know someone. And I met her, like she had a Malaysian fellowship like in 2015 when I was in Bangladesh. And she's like, this is what I want to do. This would be so cool. And it's like, you never know who you're going to meet that's going to like have some different skill sets that might be really like helpful for you down the line. So even Orna was a, you know, a contact of networking for me, even though she's, you know, my friend and my little sis. Like initially, like I had her like come over to do filmography in Kolkata. So it was a really lovely, every opportunity is always an opportunity to build. So
I love that answer. Thank you. Just as a reminder, people can continue to post questions in the chat or unmute themselves. But while we wait for that, I would love to learn a little bit about what you think people have some misconceptions or may not understand about your field.
Let's see. I think that I think I'm a special case in the fact that I do just have a literature master's, like, and I have, you know, gotten a lot of the positions I have. I think there is a misconception that you do have to have a TESOL, but again, the safe spot would be to get one. But again, like another misconception that I've got from people that are not in the education field is that it pays a lot. It might not pay the most, but it definitely takes care of you. Like, I think that would be the caveat there, because a lot of the positions that you can get abroad or with the Department of State, like with the English Language Fellowship Program or Fulbright, is that you may not need a lot of money to do what you're doing, but they will take care of your housing. They'll take care of your transportation. They'll take care of your flights. So those are costs that, like, when you think about negotiating salaries, like you also have to factor in, well, they're kicking in housing, or they're kicking in, you know, these other, you know, money points that, you know, you now don't have to worry about. So I think that's one misconception. I had a man that thought that I was making like a ton of money, and I was like, not making a lot, but like I am, you know, I'm comfortable, very comfortable. So
that's perfect.
Yeah.
What final advice would you give to a young professional looking to make themselves competitive for this work in this space, or thoughts on why they should be interested in joining in the first place?
I mean, I feel like I have been very blessed with like getting to see the world. And I think that anybody that has a passion to understand other cultures or see the world, this is a really excellent way to do it. So that there are many ways to do it, but this is kind of a, there's always going to be a need, or in the foreseeable future, there is always going to be a need for English teaching, because it is the global language. And so, I mean, there's so many opportunities if you go on to like job sites like higher ed, if you have a master's already, or if you go to Dave's ESL Cafe, you can find things there. There are a lot of opportunities for people with differing education levels, differing experience levels. So I think always opportunities are out there. So if you're passionate about it and you want to travel, you want to see the world, this is a really cool way to do it.
Yes, and your pictures at the very end and throughout definitely are a testament to that.
Thank you.
Well, Thank you so much, Katy, again for being here. We want to thank you for donating your time and providing some very interesting information about your career history and experiences. We'd also like to thank you all for coming and your continued interest and support for the IRC. Again, if you've heard about this event through meetup.com, please let us know in the chat box. I'd like to close by putting in a plug for some of our upcoming events, in particular our Croatian Lexicon series next week. If you're interested in them or any other IRC activities, we encourage you to check out our website for more information, irckc.org. There you can also find a link to our YouTube channel where you'll be able to find a full recording of this conversation in case you'd like to revisit again, alongside many others. Thank you so much for being here once again. Please stay well, and we hope to see you all very soon.
Thank you.